spend in coping and managing.
Yeah.
So I've been
I
doing
guess
a lot
real
of
life.
reading. Yeah, it's real
Yeah.
life. Always,
Yeah.
interrupting what you would rather do.
A warm good evening, everybody. I cordially welcome you to this conversation with the renowned author Indranil Mukherjee. And this conversation is facilitated by Ahmedabad Book Club and Karma Foundation in collaboration with the Write With Us group. If I have to speak more about Indranil Mukherjee, he is a software professional turned novelist. After working for more than a quarter century along with colleagues across the globe, he has plunged full time to pursue his passion of writing. He has published 3 books so far. First book is Rekill, which is a novel of crime and karma. Second, The Station Master. This is an interesting collection of 10 short stories based on real life experiences. And the third one is Off the Pages. This is again a novel of action and humor. And it is very close to his heart and it is part dedicated to his idol and favorite author, P.G. Wodehouse. All these books are available online and I have read all these books and it is a wonderful read. The Station Master has also been translated into Bengali and published by Ananda Publishers as The Station Master. He has been recognized as one of the top 20 debut authors in 2018 by the Literature's Light and has contributed a short story by invitation to their COVID-19 Lockdown 1 anthology by name Life in Lockdown. On a personal front, Indranil is happily married to Sangamitra and they live in New Delhi while their son Ayush works in the US. So Indranil Mukherjee can be found at www.indranilmukherjee.com where his website lives, awaiting updates on life, the universe and everything. So let's get started with the discussion. Indranil sir, I have an unconventional question for you in the beginning. Do you hide
Okay.
any secrets in your books that only few people will find? Do you hide them between words and the chapters? Only few people close to you can identify it.
That's a very perceptive question. Before I get into that, I would like to also thank you for the fantastic introduction that you gave me, and all the viewers who are making time to join in here and listen to this chat. I'm overwhelmed by all the love and affection that I've been receiving from all the people. So thank you again for that and this fantastic opportunity. Also, the question, it's a very perceptive question, like I said. These are like Easter eggs, Easter eggs. In the software industry, softwares often have these Easter eggs which people discover either through whispers or through accidental finding and so on. For instance, Excel used to have a treasure trove of these Easter eggs. So if you combined a few keys, you would suddenly be able to play a game on in Excel. Just give me a second. Easter eggs. So if you combined a few. So just like that, in books also, it's not because of that or my background in software, but there are some inside jokes. So, for instance, in the book Off the Pages, there are a few characters and there are a few words or there are a few the way that incidents have been turned. They are like Easter eggs hid in the open. So if you have been a Woodhouse fan, you would have spotted these and had a private laugh as well, because I have kind of used those scenarios in my book, in my context. But these were like paying homage to my favorite author. So yes, there are.
Yes, yes, very, very interesting snippet, sir. So that brings to my next question. That is the character of Tej Singh in Off the Pages. What inspired you to get this
Sorry,
innovative and
which character? Your voice
Tej
broke a
Singh?
little.
Yes,
Oh, Tej
am I
Singh. Okay.
audible? Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
Tej Singh in Off the Pages. What inspired this character? It's totally out of box. A character coming alive from a book, confronting the author. What made you invent this character?
Okay, I'll let you on to a secret. This
Yeah.
is not a not a trick that I have devised for the first time ever. This has been
Mm-hmm.
tried in many contexts by authors and even by filmmakers, where
Mm-hmm.
fictional characters have come to life. So what would happen? So
Mm-hmm.
just to give you a little bit of a background, there are a lot of subgenres that people write in, which has to do
Mm-hmm.
with the what if. I have talked of this in some of my previous chats. There
Mm-hmm.
is a line of movie making, there is a line of book writing which deals with alternative history. So
Mm-hmm.
what if this history had not happened this way, but had happened some other
Mm-hmm.
way? So what would have happened? Let's say India did not, and this is a blasphemous question, but what if India did not win independence in 1947? What would have
Mm-hmm.
happened then? If we won independence in 1977, what would have happened then? In another 30 years of British rule, what could have changed? What could have been different? So this is all left to the author's visualization or imagination, and uh, he can create these kind of you know storylines and so on.
Yes.
There is a very
Yes.
famous movie director. What's his name? Very famous. Reservoir Dogs and this the last one. There is this movie called The Inglorious Bastards,
Mm-hmm.
where they talk about it's an alternative line of thing where they defeat the Nazis much before in time. Or there is this show which is going on it's available. The show is available on Amazon Prime. I've spoken of this again, but The
Mm-hmm.
Man in the High Castle, which is where the Nazis have won the Second World War. So what happens then? So
Mm-hmm.
this is something which is there. A character coming alive is something that I remember when I was probably about 20 years old. There was a movie that came on television on Doordarshan. There were no other channels other than Doordarshan,
Mm-hmm.
and it used to be one movie they show one Sunday afternoon and so on and so forth. I had seen
Mm-hmm.
that. It was a very serious movie, and I remember just that one scene. I don't remember the name of the movie, where a character comes and meets with the author and he is full of anger at the author because of the
Mm-hmm.
conditions that he has created for the character. I was
Mm-hmm.
so taken by that idea because I used to be always interested in writing, so that was always there. So when
Mm-hmm.
I watched this, the movie actually fell off my mind. I don't remember that movie at all, but that idea stuck with me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Right.
that was very serious, and it was
Uh-huh.
genuine anger that the character was expressing and so on. But here,
Mm.
my character is actually, it is not just a single character that has come to life, it's a whole
Mm.
genre has come to life. And
Mm-hmm.
because the author also writes romance, so the romance characters have also come to life, and there is an interaction between them, and it creates all that kind of mayhem that is
Mm-hmm.
happening. Huh?
Yes.
So it was all fun. And because of that
Mm-hmm.
germ of an idea, I had to devise a plot which would bring them all together, and that is the rest of it you have read, so you understand what happened
Yes,
there.
that has become a very, very interesting read, and that brings me to the next question. Will there be a sequel to Off the Pages? If it comes, I will be the first one to read.
I have been I have been asked this question by several of my friends or even readers, people I don't know,
Mhm.
what happened to Tej next. In fact, some of them, this is another little, not quite hidden, but it's in plain sight. The book actually ends with the end with a question mark. I don't know if you remember that or if you have noticed that. Okay, so Off the Pages actually ends the end with a question mark. So
Question
some
mark.
people caught on to that. So is
Uh-huh.
that the end? So there must be something more.
Something.
So
That's
yeah, I
a
mean,
very
why not?
clever way. Very clever way of ending. Yes.
Yeah. So there are certain thoughts. I haven't developed a plot for it yet,
Mm-hmm.
but there are certain possibilities which I would like to explore. And if something clicks in my mind, why not? I'm always looking
Yes.
for a plot.
Yes. If it comes out, definitely that will be in my read list. And sticking on to Off the Pages, I believe that it can be made into a movie. Imagine it's been selected to be made into a movie. If you have to select the actors who have to play Tej and Dev, who would it be from Bollywood?
Okay, so I have also thought about that
That's great.
because again, so I
Yeah.
have been asked this question as well. So in the for the case of Tej Singh, I wanted somebody who would be very robust and tall and
Mhm.
very passionate looking guy. So I was
Mhm.
thinking of Ranveer Singh. Okay,
Wow. Yeah.
and for the case of this was before the tragedy happened, but
Mhm.
for the case of Dev, I was actually thinking of Irfan Khan. Somebody who has a sense of humor, and he has an amazing ability to emote fear, personal fear, or anxiety or confusion, and he does it so beautifully. Or I should say, he used to
Mhm.
do it so beautifully. So he was another guy
Mhm.
that I used to think of who could play the role of Dev. And
Mhm.
for Muzi, I would have thought Deepika Padukone. I mean, it has to be a big budget
Wow.
film.
Very, very interesting pick of actors, and I agree with your viewpoint. So now I would like to ask the question. You have brought about very interesting characters in your books. For you, what comes first in a book, a plot
Mhm.
or a character? Whom do you form first? Do you first stick to
Actually,
the?
um, this is a little difficult to say with certainty. Uh,
Hmm.
okay, so you have read Rekill.
Yes, yes.
Rekill, the plot was first. Okay,
Hmm.
so because I was thinking of an idea where it would be I have spoken of this in earlier chats. It had to be a closed room mystery, where
Hmm.
everything is closed and there are only a few set of characters, and all the
Hmm.
action is happening within those characters. I mean, there is nothing much that is happening outside of that closed environment.
Hmm.
So that was there in my mind. So it had to be
Hmm.
something which was confined, but it was
Hmm.
not going to be limited or be a room, a static room. I wanted something different over there. So here, that is the reason why I devised this train thing, that it is happening in a
Hmm.
moving compartment.
Hmm.
So it actually introduces more complications because the killer cannot escape, right?
Hmm.
So the
Yeah.
killer, because the train is running until it stops at one
Hmm.
station, he can escape. But by
Hmm.
escaping, he actually tells everybody, points fingers at himself because he has
Hmm.
committed a crime, and that is the reason why he's running. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that story evolved like that, and
Hmm.
as it often happens with me, I think of an idea and then I create the why.
Hmm.
Why is this happening? So there, who
Hmm.
could be an interesting character in this kind of an environment? So here,
Hmm.
I thought an unusual thing would be to create a killer
Hmm.
and let his point of view be the
Hmm.
reader's point of view. So he's in the
Hmm.
first person.
Hmm.
So in that case, it happened as the plot and then the character. And
Hmm.
again, for off the pages, as you know, I already knew that there would be a character who has come to life. So what would
Hmm.
happen then?
Then
So
yes.
there the character came first, and then I thought,
Uh-huh.
if he comes and he's annoyed with his author, but it's all comical.
Hmm.
It's not serious. For him, it is all serious. It's a matter of life and death. Or, I mean, but for him, it is serious, but for the readers, it is fun. So I
Hmm.
devised a plot after the character's appearance. All right.
Hmm.
And Railway Master was, of course, I mean, it came with the character. So it's the
Hmm.
stories are based on real life. So the character I knew the kind of man he is, the passionate, the passion
Hmm.
that he has for the railways
Hmm.
and his sincerity and so on. And those are examples that I've seen from his life.
Hmm.
The way he looks
Hmm.
after his family and so on and so forth, and
Hmm.
the amount of effort he takes in ensuring people that he not even family, outside his family, how he deals with them, how he makes things better for them. And that's the kind of person he is. So there again, the character was known to me, and the incidents then came to me. So there was no development of a plot. I have just narrated them as they happened. So it happens either way. It may happen this way or it may happen that way.
Uh-huh. That's fair enough, sir. So sticking to Rekill, here you have told the story from an antagonist perspective, the killer's perspective. What made you take his side? Usually we take the protagonist side, the good person side. What made you take a unique view here?
Exactly. That's the word. Unique. I wanted
Yes.
it to be different.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this thing, not just in writing. I have this thing in everything that I do. It has to be a little different. So if I wish somebody for a birthday, it has to be a little different. The phrasing has to be different. So that's what I do. I mean, that's to me as part of my nature. I can't help it. So
Okay.
here I wanted to do something which I haven't read too much of it. Of course, there have been books that have been written from the point of view of the killer or the antagonist. There are books. I mean, It's nothing. I'm not an inventor of that point of view telling. But here, I wanted a very egotistical guy who's very egotistic. He thinks no end of his skills, and it doesn't consider killing people a crime. That's his profession. So and he excels at it. So he's very egotistical. And if he has messed up a job, then he's really upset with himself, and he cannot let that go. So he's a weird kind of a guy.
That's fair enough, sir. One thing I've observed in all the three book of yours is you have used visual language very well, visual and vivid language, very good action verbs. So I want some tips from you, or you can tell the audience some tips how to come out with such visual and vivid language. Do you write it in the first edit, or the second, third edit, you fine tune it and get this visual language?
No, but thank you for the compliment. But the way that I write is, if let's take an example. So let's say that off the pages, you remember there is a scene which is happening in that the Grand Hyatt, in the hotel in Delhi. Yeah, I have never been to that hotel, but I've been to other hotels which are of the similar type. So I was using that image in my mind, and I invented the rest. Now, the way that it happened to me was in my mind, I was watching it as a film. Okay. It was unreeling in my mind as I was writing. So I was writing what I was seeing in my mind. And that's, in fact, the way that I read books. Okay. So if I'm reading a book, that's the power of the author. The author, by just mere words, is creating an image in front of my eye. And it is entirely my image. I mean, when you read the same book, you will have a different image. So that's the power of the author, that he's able to create that image in your mind. So that's what I was kind of leveraging. I was imagining that scene in my mind, and whatever I was seeing is what I was writing. So it was not something that I was, forcing myself to do. I was just writing what I was seeing. Or you remember there was this scene where this helicopter goes around and
Yes.
they are dropping these grenades
Yes.
funnily.
Yep.
So that is something I was imagining. I mean, what would happen inside? And again, here is a villain like Gomes, who's a weirdo of the first type. I mean, he's so inflated ego guy that he can't, and he knows nothing, next to nothing of throwing grenades, and yet he's doing the job. Or he's so upset with the wind coming in from the opened window of the helicopter, that he gives the job to his second guy to do, and which he knew nothing of grenades. So it is a question of just imagining what I was seeing in my mind, and that is what I was writing. And if it comes out the way that you as a reader are sensing it, my purpose is served, and I'm only happy that you enjoyed that. I trust you did.
Yes, sir. Definitely. I loved the write-up. Now coming to some personal questions, sir. You had like 25 years of experience in the IT industry, and then you decided to be a writer. What made you take up writing? What made you, take that plunge?
You know what? I mean, there are, like in any life decision, it's not triggered by a single thing. It's
Hmm.
usually a range of factors that come together, and there is a triggering
Hmm.
event that happens.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So, writing is something that I was always keen to get onto.
Hmm.
And I had written when I was in school or in late in school, like classes 7, 8, 9, 10 kinds. But
Hmm.
I had never, barring one story, I had never completed what I started because attention span, I guess, was not enough for me to take a story to conclusion. And as a writer yourself, you will know that when you have begun a story, you have a vision for
Hmm.
it, but it is actually hard work to sustain that vision and bring it to a conclusion where the
Hmm.
conclusion not just it should not be just a question of ending the story somehow, but it should be
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
which satisfies you.
Hmm.
Yes,
Hmm.
I have given it a good closure.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
For instance, when the way that Rekil ended,
Hmm.
yeah, you
Hmm.
remember the ending, how it ended. I didn't know how to
Yes.
end a story. So
Uh-huh.
when I was writing it, I didn't know, I didn't have that planned. So when I was writing it, I suddenly realized, what if I ended it on a manner where the reader is left thinking of what would finally have happened? I mean, a thread is opened and then it is left there. When the
Hmm.
woman
Hmm.
tells
Hmm.
him whatever he tells him, whatever she tells him.
Hmm.
So, and it ends just like that. Okay,
Hmm.
but a novel like Off the Pages, it has a more gathered ending, but then I
Hmm.
end it with a couple of twists at the
Hmm.
end
Hmm.
so that the reader is left thinking a little. If you have read the epilogue in the book very carefully, you would have seen there are pointers to certain things uh, which a reread might help.
Hmm. Hmm.
I,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't know if you have used them. So it's the thread is actually in ensuring that you terminate or you build a
Hmm.
story and you end it in a manner which not just
Hmm. Hmm.
satisfies you, it also satisfies the reader in the way that
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
story climaxes.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Fair enough, sir. Fair enough. So that brings me to the next question. Like, what's the most difficult aspect of being a writer?
Mm, difficult. See, the most difficult aspect of writing is being able to carry on
Huh.
with the plot that you have devised in your mind and
Hmm. Hmm.
bringing
Hmm.
it to a conclusion.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
and this is, I'm sure it will differ from author to author.
Hmm. Hmm.
What works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for me, or some ideas may work both together. For instance,
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
not a very disciplined writer. It is not that my favorite author always started writing at 8 in the morning, had lunch at 12 or something, and then he went to
Hmm. Hmm.
took a nap, and then he came back and started writing from 4 o'clock. He took a walk and all that, and then he started writing. He would start writing from 4 o'clock in the
Hmm. Hmm.
afternoon and carry on till 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. So that was something that I did 7 days in a week.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm not disciplined. I take a I don't I write when the urge is very strong and the
Hmm.
words are flowing, and sometimes I'm
Hmm.
struggling. So it's a mix between the two.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So that way. Sorry, Devi.
Okay.
I think for the previous question, how I came to writing is something that I did not end properly. So I just want to go back there and connect the dots.
Sure, sure,
So
sir. You
while
can carry on.
yeah, so yeah, so while that was there, the other factors were that my son had grown up and he had gone off to the US to do his
Hmm.
masters, so he was on his way to settle down, and uh, I was kind of bored with doing what I was doing day in and day out, and the
Hmm.
usual, everybody goes through that, the
Hmm.
frustrations
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
the little fights and so on and so forth. I got sick and
Hmm.
tired of it, and one
Hmm.
particular day I had a terrible day, and I came back home and I told my wife, you know what? I'm going to quit this job and we're going to go back to Delhi. This is all happening in Chennai. We were living in
Hmm.
Chennai at
Hmm.
that time. And I said, I'm done with this. I'm going to quit. And so she was like, taken aback. And we had moved from Delhi to Chennai for this particular job and us. And meanwhile gone off to the US. And we were there all settled in, this, that. And I said, I'm done with it. I'm going to quit and I'm going to move on and let's drive all the way to Delhi. So from Chennai to Delhi, we will drive. It'll be a great mind opener because there is no job that I'm hurrying to in Delhi. So we can take all the time in the world. So actually, we took a little more than a month to drive from Chennai to Delhi, staying at various places. Jahan dil kiya, wahan reh liya. And we did that and we reached Delhi after a month. And it was still demonetization time, 2016 December. So we were running low on cash and there was some cash at home which we had to change and all that. That's the reason why we had to reach Delhi by end of the month of December. So that's how we came back. And then the thought in my mind during all this was happening was, now that I'm so tired of working, I'm going to do what I always wanted to do, which was to write. And right during that time, an old set of conversations that I had with Manas Banerjee, the main character on whom Manav Banerjee of the book is based, they came rushing back to me. So I said, this is what I was waiting for, and you know what? I'm going to write. So I wrote that. I wrote the Station Master in about 4 months. I finished it off. Because everything was there in my mind, and I had to get into calls with Manas, and Manas, he's elder to me, so he's Manas Da in Bangla. We say Dada, as you know. So Manas Da, I had to call him up frequently and make his life miserable because I asked these nitty-gritty questions. So if you have read the book, so you will know that I have taken a lot of pain into describing how the signals work or how a station. How a train arrives at the station, is that, and how platforms are assigned and so on. So those are little nitty-gritty things that are there, and I made life miserable for him. And he was very patient with me. He kept answering my questions again and again and again, and I made notes. But anyway, I finished writing in 4 months. And then in this period, I tell you, Devi, I had never enjoyed every day so much as I did at a personal level. I enjoyed that act of writing and something forming in front of my eyes so much that it became, like a drug. I had to.
Yes.
So I said, to hell with it, and this is what I'm going to do.
Wow, that's an
that was the
inspiring. that's inspiring that you got that spark and just wrote down the stories in 4 months. Yes, that's really inspiring. That's like aspiring author like me can take. That's a very good takeaway. When you have that spark, just go for it. Don't wait any longer. Just write it. Very, very wonderful to hear that, sir. So now I want to ask you, how do you handle these literary criticisms? You get criticisms on social media, even from close friends, family, we get criticism. How do you handle all these pressures?
Okay, so I'll tell you, for everything, there is your point of view, right? There are events happening all around you, not just in writing, in anything. You have a particular point of view. And the same way, when I'm writing, I have a certain point of view. Okay? So I'll share a very, something which happened just a couple of days, yesterday, in fact. I'll share that towards the end of this answer. And it is your point of view. So first and foremost, and I've read this, some authors have written about this and so on. First and foremost, the book is your baby. Okay. One rule in life, and I was a people manager for more than 20 years. Okay. So you realize, you understand that you cannot please everybody. You cannot make everyone happy. So your aim should be to make as many happy as you can. Okay. There, if you are doing a good job of making yourself happy, that happiness actually rubs off on other people. So if you are happy, you will have others who feed off that happiness to be happy themselves. So taking that example forward, or that input forward to your writing, you write something that you believe in, you like, you love, people will mostly like it because I mean it's kind of a connection over there. There will be criticism. So first, one of the things that you first have to understand is that everybody has a point of view. So if it is when you discuss with somebody and the person is sharing his opinion, uh, you understand how serious that person is or how committed he is or he wants to have a lengthy conversation. So you explain your point of view because I think it is worth it for that other person to understand because he's investing time in giving me his feedback. He could have just kept quiet. You know, he had no business to tell me that he didn't like the book. But he took the pain of, telling me. So if he's investing the time, I'm happy to invest that time into telling him as to why I did the way that I did. However, there is criticism. There is somebody who read Station Master and he told me over phone, very, very famous person. I cannot name that person. Very, very famous person. He called me up and he spoke to me saying that, the Station Master is a very lowly character. So I don't know how to respond to that. He's a lowly character in Indian Railways, but that's his opinion. He may not be a very high character in the hierarchy of Indian Railways, but it is that man's experience. For all you know, if you were to talk to a beggar, a common beggar on the streets, imagine the kind of experiences he would have had of generosity or cruelty or any kind, It's an amazing range of experiences he would have had. But because he's a beggar doesn't make his experiences of less worth. So this kind of criticism is something that you kind of let it wash over you. It should not disappoint you because you understand that it serves a purpose. Then the experience that I wanted to share with you the other day, this one I will name. Back in the mid 80s, late 80s, there used to be a very an excellent news reader on Doordarshan, a gentleman named Ramu Damodaran. I was a fan of his book reading. News reading. And on Twitter, I suddenly found him. So I followed him on Twitter, and then he had shared something just a couple of days ago. He shared something which I liked, so I also shared, and I wrote something along with that sharing. I quote tweeted him, saying that one of my most favorite news readers, and he has shared this, so such and such. So he actually messaged me on Twitter, and he quoted off the pages as in his reply to me. And then he said, that I would love to read your book. I was like overawed. Here, it's a fan moment. I was his fan with news reading. And here he is interacting with me, a mere mortal, and he's saying that he will read my book. I was overjoyed. So I said, please do. Then yesterday morning, I got a message from him saying that he has read Rekill. And he said, I loved the suspense, this, that. I would have loved it to have been from the first person. You remember, the story is not necessarily entirely in first person. It is almost 60% in first person, then something else happens, and then a little more, and then it ends with first person. Just the last bit. So it's a rotating point of view. That was an experiment I was doing. And he said, if it is in the first person, and you can do a plot reveal and then withholding and this, that, it would be a wonderful. And I like that thought. So I wrote back to him saying that, this is a lovely thought. And if I develop this into a script for a say a movie or a show, then I can use that point. So this is criticism, which is something that you accept and you say that, you explain. I explained why I did what I did. This is a story that I wrote 15 years ago. So I was wanting to do some experiments. So that is the reason I did that rotating point of view narration. And then when he suggested this, he said, then he later again wrote to me a larger paragraph saying this, that, what are the good things about it. And then he said, this has potential to be developed as a full novel where you can do this. This is amazing feedback. I loved it. Ekto, he's a guy I always looked up to. Amazing pronunciation. I'm very triggered by good pronunciation. So He's a guy he used to speak spiffing English. So he would read it very well on news, and I was always very fond of his news reading. And he's the guy who's interacting with me, and he's giving me so much, so sensible advice. So I was thrilled. So there are ways that you deal with criticism. Criticism will always come. So you look for the positive, and there are some where you let it go if it doesn't serve much purpose. If it is
Very
just
well said.
criticism for the
Very.
sake of criticism.
Yes, yes, very well said, sir. If the criticism is constructive, yes, we should take it and we can
Yeah,
imbibe it.
absolutely.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I'm
So,
not saying that I'm infallible. I could have made
hmm
mistakes. I have written about technical things. For instance, in the station master, there was a very senior railways employees who wrote some feedback on Amazon, and he said every technical detail is right. So I actually went to him separately and I asked him, "You read it thoroughly? Did you?" He said, "Absolutely fine. For the purpose of a novel, it is everything is fine. There is no mistake." It's fantastic feedback. Right?
yes, yes. Thanks for your input, sir. So, I want to ask,
Right.
anytime have you thought of writing under a pseudonym? You prefer to be a ghostwriter. I don't want to reveal my identity. Let me just be a ghostwriter.
If I have not considered this, although I have used this idea in Off the Pages. I haven't considered this. I would rather that I did not, but if I were to, then it would be something which would be thoroughly antagonistic in tone.
Okay.
I mean, if your book is not offending somebody, then it is not antagonistic. So
Okay.
you are writing, say, a political criticism, then I might, but
Yes,
no, I haven't considered that.
considered it. Okay, okay. And one thing I noticed in all of your works is you try to bring in very good humor using the words, twists, turns, and I really like the humor that you bring in. For our viewers, could you like to say that humor is something which we can develop over time, or should it come naturally in your writing, or can a writer develop it over time?
Um, See, it would always help if you already have a sense of humor. Everybody laughs at jokes. I mean, most normal people would laugh at jokes. Some people may take offense, so that is a different aspect. But if you are able to spot a joke or narrate a joke, I am a very bad narrator of jokes. I don't do it very well. But I enjoy humor so much that that is my favorite genre, and my favorite author is a humorist because of this the amazing skill that that gentleman had in writing those sentences which will make you bend over with laughter. So if you have a sense of that, you can bring it to deploy on your in your work. If you are somebody who's struggling to write humor, then you have to try out those jokes with your people, with your friends and family to know to see if that actually works. Otherwise, a flat joke is not going to serve any purpose. So, let's say you are using a malapropism. So, is that working in while reading? Some jokes work when they are narrated, but they don't work so well when you read. But there are jokes or there are incidents or there is the way that you write that makes it more humorous. So I tend to go with a funny incident, but presenting it humorously. So Off the Pages was my effort at doing that, and descriptions can be made. So I would say that you should work on it. If it is coming difficult to you, you have to try it with your friends and family to see if by having them read those parts and then using them. But if you struggle, that struggle is going to show. So you have to be very critical of material
I guess we have lost Indranil sir. There's some network issue. Let's wait for him to, join back. Let's just wait, give 1 to 2 minutes, let him join back. So until he joins back, let me brief you all more about his books. The Station Master, that is, yeah, sir is back here. Yes.
Yeah, I'm back, but
Sir, can you
the
hear me?
screen seems to be freezing. I can hear you, but your image is frozen. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir. I can hear you.
Okay, but your image is frozen. I can see
Can you see
myself. I
me,
don't know
sir?
if I can see a very frozen image of yours, a blurry frozen image. I don't know if it is a link issue. I mean, an issue with the Wi-Fi, or it is a network issue for sure.
Is
Can you
it
hear me anymore?
audible? Yes, yes, I
Yeah, yeah,
can
yeah.
hear
Now,
you,
yeah,
sir. Can
back,
you see me as well?
back.
Now it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Yes.
All good, all good.
I missed like last 2 minutes of your speech. I missed the last two lines.
Uh, can you tell me what was the last thing that you heard?
Uh, Actually, I lost it for some around 2 to 3, 4 minutes. I
Oh,
think you
that's a
can
long
start
time.
all over. Yeah, yeah, long time. You can start all over from where you started the last
Uh,
question. If it's
so
okay with you.
again, can you? Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, if you can repeat the question, I have lost the thread in the gap.
You were talking more about the humor aspect, sir.
Oh, from then on, I mean, okay, okay. So I was saying that,
Yes.
for humor to really work, you have to ensure that those jokes that you are narrating work by testing
Hmm.
it out on your friends and family. एक तो
Hmm.
वो. The other is,
Hmm.
if you're struggling, then you have to be
Hmm.
very self-critical, because the
Hmm.
material that is going to come out when you're struggling in your writing will typically, that's what happens in my case, that
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
quality of prose is not as good. So you
Hmm.
have to
Hmm.
be very self-critical and then delete that and restart and so on.
Hmm. Hmm.
But don't let the thread break, because the idea should be
Hmm.
there.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
If the idea sustains, then you can rebuild that.
Yes.
But
Yes.
ultimately, humor is something that you have to use very wisely. If it is
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
a humor book,
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
is not a, like in my case, if half the pages was principally humor, farce, action,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
could
Hmm.
I could be a little loose with it. But if it is a
Hmm.
more serious book like Station Master, the humor has to be appropriate at certain points, and it should
Points. Yes.
serve the story. It should not just
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
a question of using humor just
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
I can write a good joke.
Hmm.
Then
Hmm.
it
Hmm. Hmm.
loses that thread that way,
Yes,
very
yes,
judiciously.
yes, yes. Very,
Yeah,
very well said that you should use humor judiciously and you should have the
absolutely.
hold over it. Yes.
Yeah.
So one person from the audience has raised the question: how
Uh-huh.
much time should you spend for editing your work?
I'll give a roundabout answer first, and then be more direct.
Yes.
In software building, it used to be said
Mm-hmm.
that when you are writing software, you should plan that for a larger amount of time than for writing it,
Mm-hmm.
developing it.
Mm-hmm.
And testing software is almost at
Mm-hmm.
equal 1:1 ratio. So if you have spent
Mm-hmm.
6 hours writing software, spend 6 hours testing it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I have been influenced by that, because I was deep into software for a very long
Okay.
time,
Mm-hmm.
quarter century. So I believe that when I've written something, I should edit it as thoroughly as I can
Mm-hmm.
for almost as much time that I've spent in writing. However,
Mm-hmm.
in my case, what I do, this is principally me. It may not be for you
Mm-hmm.
or X. The thing is, whenever say I've written something yesterday and I'm starting in the morning today, taking it up forward, I
Mm-hmm.
reread what I had written yesterday. And
Mm-hmm.
because I have slept 12 hours after that, or I haven't
Mm-hmm.
touched it for 20 hours after that, I will
Mm-hmm.
have a fresher pair of eyes looking at the text that I've written. and I may find, and I find umpteen such errors,
Hmm.
not just grammatical, but the construction, or it is not clear enough when I'm reading something. So I'm editing
Hmm.
there as well. So this is
Hmm.
editing while writing. And then once the
Hmm.
text is complete,
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
at least if I have written, say, a book in, say, 4 months, then I
Hmm.
should at least edit it for a couple of months.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean,
Hmm.
really thoroughly.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I mean, whether you're spending quality time or quantity of time is a different matter. I mean, if you're
Hmm.
spending
Hmm.
a lot of time but not doing productive work, then it doesn't serve the purpose.
Hmm. Hmm.
Vis-a-vis, you could spend less time but be very, very critical, self-critical, and then do your own editing very effectively. You can do it in a shorter period
Hmm.
of time.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Station Master was my first book, and I did
Hmm.
self-editing. So
Hmm.
there I ought to have spent a little more time, I feel.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I also was conscious of that, that editing has a potential of never stopping.
Hmm.
You understand? You
Yes.
can keep
Yes.
on editing for the rest of your
Yeah.
life. You will never be happy,
Hmm.
never be completely happy. You will be happy
Hmm.
marginally more than what you were yesterday, and then marginally more tomorrow than what you are today, and so on. But the
Hmm.
creeping thing can go on and on and on. So you have to draw a
Hmm.
line,
Hmm.
How
Hmm.
effective is the text in conveying the story that you have written? If it is
Hmm. Hmm.
serving the purpose, go on. I mean, obviously, there
Go
should
on.
not be
Hmm.
bloopers and grammatical errors or punctuation errors
Hmm.
and so
Hmm.
on. You
Hmm. Hmm.
root them out. But in
Hmm.
terms of editing, bring it to a point where it serves the purpose that you have written it to serve, and then
Hmm.
let go.
Hmm. 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 So that
Yeah.
follow-up question to this is like these days we have a lot of writing software for our grammar editing, punctuation editing, even for ideas. Should we too much depend on these software or just go with our natural flow? What is your take on this writing software?
I'm very, I'm very old-fashioned in this. See, I'll tell you, that tells you the answer. But I'll tell you what, I write. I've been since the time that I've been a computer professional. I've done all my writing on computer
Hmm.
and Word principally.
Hmm.
So Word has this fantastic feature of spotting your spellings if you have set the spelling to the kind of English that you're writing, whether it is Indian English or
Hmm.
UK
Hmm.
English or American. It spots your errors, spelling errors, and all that. So that
Hmm.
serves admirably. I find that very useful. So the basic thing is taken care of. It can
Hmm.
also
Hmm.
do the grammar check. Uh, in most cases, it does a fair job. But
Hmm.
your sense for the language and your sense for how you want to say it is something
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
you have to finally be dependent on. You should depend on your skills.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
And if somebody else is editing your work, then you need to know that the whose voice should be there in the story. It should not be the
Hmm.
editor's voice which is telling the story.
Hmm.
It should be the
Yes.
writer's voice. So
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
understanding has to be there.
Yes, yes. Thanks for the input, sir. This is one
Sure.
personal challenge I'm facing. That is, I'm thinking, should I write on computer or am I better off writing on paper? More ideas will flow if I write on paper. What do you suggest as a writer who is just beginning out to write? Should he write on online or paper writing is better for the flow of ideas?
See, essentially, I would say writing on a computer is going to be easy because of corrections and basic checks
Hmm.
that the software can do for you.
Hmm. Hmm.
However, if you feel holding a pen and writing on paper actually makes your creative juices flow better,
Hmm. Hmm.
get that. Get that. I mean, it is entirely your baby. How you want to nurse it is entirely up to you. If that
Hmm. Hmm.
serves your purpose, go ahead with it. The thing
Hmm.
is,
Hmm. Hmm.
you will you will have to submit a manuscript to the publisher only in the soft copy. So ultimately, you will have to transcribe it onto
Transfer.
the computer.
Hmm.
So it doubles your labor. But if you do a
Hmm.
better job, then that is worth it.
Hmm. 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 Yes. So now
And
I
I,
want to ask.
because using, sorry, I mean, just one line.
Yep. Yep.
Because of my the lifetime spent in software and handling computers, I have been using
Hmm.
computers since late 80s. So it's a long time that I've been with computers. I'm very comfortable with them. And I
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
type. I have never learned typing, but I can type without looking at the keyboard most of the time. 60-70% of the time I can type without looking at the screen,
Mm-hmm.
looking at the keyboard. So I'm comfortable with it. But not everyone is like that. So whatever suits you. If it suits
Mm-hmm.
you to write by hand, do it. Sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Yeah. So now I want to ask you a question as to how do you celebrate when you finish your book? Writing a book is a laborious process,
Oh my
researching,
God.
writing, then editing. How do you celebrate once everything is done? You're calm and composed.
Oh man, I remember. See, when it rolled off my shoulders, what I wanted to do was just lie down and sleep. It was so peaceful that
Hmm.
that monkey on my back was off. I had done with it, and now I'm not going to look at it for the purposes that I had been looking at it. I'm going to read it again, but I'm not going to be
Hmm.
looking at it from the point of view of a writer. I'm now going to be a reader.
Hmm. Reader.
Yeah. So it becomes a celebration just to be able to relax.
Hmm.
Maybe have a quiet, nice. I mean, when times were normal, when my off the pages came out, we went out for a dinner and all that. So that's about it. But it's the sheer pleasure of having another one
Hmm.
out of the gate. So that was
Hmm.
very. It was a celebration by itself.
Hmm. That's fair enough, sir. That's the satisfaction that matters once your
Correct. The
baby is
satisfaction.
delivered.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fair enough. Now I want to ask you, like, do you have any writing buddies? Do you have somebody to motivate you, share your work, and the other author shares it? And do you have somebody like that, writing buddy?
No. No. I'm a very self-dependent person that way. So I don't have someone like that. I do have beta readers, and for Station
Mm-hmm.
Master, uh, there were several that I have acknowledged in the preface,
Mm-hmm.
but it was all post facto, and some of them came up with very valid feedback, which I incorporated.
Mm-hmm.
Some were wishful, so I could not really incorporate because the principle
Mm-hmm.
in Station Master was that I would not fabricate anything. Whatever is
Mm-hmm.
narrated is exactly as that happened. So somebody wanted uh, some of the crimes that were committed over there for the criminal, and the criminal got away scot free to
Mm-hmm.
to be punished in the story. But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do that because that did not happen in real life. So that kind of
Mm-hmm.
criticism or feedback I could not incorporate. But there were several which were, make this a little lighter or make that a little more descriptive or less descriptive, this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that I incorporated. I do have
Mm-hmm.
beta readers, therefore, but I don't have parties.
Okay, okay. Beta readers whom you can take constructive
Yeah,
feedback.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
that's fair enough. And I know that all the books you have published it in a traditional way. So, what challenges you faced while publishing it in a traditional way? And when you got your first contract, like, can you just describe that process? Like, how many
Yeah.
times you had to pitch in, and so how many
Oh,
tries
yeah,
did
yeah.
you make it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. But David, there, there are two parts to this. One is
Mm-hmm.
Rekill I self-published. So I published that on
Mm-hmm.
Amazon. It is just an ebook.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's a very
Mm-hmm.
small 50 odd pages, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
go for a paperback. And
Mm-hmm.
I self-published. And that worked fine for that book.
Mm-hmm.
For
Mm-hmm.
Station Master, I went the traditional route full-fledged. So once I finished writing in 2017, I started sending out the proposals. I had to learn how to write book proposals. So
Mm-hmm.
I kept doing that, and I think I sent it to some 11 publishers,
Mm-hmm.
and some were immediate rejects, and some just went into a black hole.
Mm-hmm.
This one said that they liked the manuscript and they wanted to go ahead,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
it would be in a queue. And
Mm-hmm.
because they published only n number of books in a particular year, then I would have to wait for the next year for them to take it up.
Mm-hmm.
So this
Mm-hmm.
was sometime in 18. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a mail from them in April 2018. So already more than a year, or
Mm-hmm.
just about a year. And okay, so if I sent it out to 11, this was the eighth. So I sent it to 11. This was the eighth one that I had sent to who accepted. And
Mm-hmm.
then they sent me a mail saying that, if I was okay with it, then they would get it published through a writer fund. So it's called, I have that over here. It's mentioned in the book. Word Art Fund helps deserving authors publish their work by providing monetary support. So that's how this book came out, and it got published in that manner. So I just had to wait for that time to happen. So they approved this in April, and it came out in October, because the rest of the time is actually spent in readying the book. So that was a massive learning experience for me, because for one, I had to actually figure out how to write a book publishing proposal. And it's a company. I was, as a software guy, I used to write these proposals, but they were, although the word proposal is used here and there, they have completely different components that are required to write, to create a book publishing proposal. So I had to learn that from scratch, provide all the input, and then some of the publishers wanted me to do some research on how viable this book would be. Are there similar books available? So I had to do my own research to find out if there were books available like this. And to my surprise, actually, I didn't find a single book the way that this book has been written, the Station Master has been written. So it's unique. There are many railways books. I mean, there is a thread which a person publishes on Twitter on the most famous Indian Railways books. There are some 89 books on the Indian Railways, but there is only one book which talks about the experiences of the station master, which is my book. So it's unique from that perspective. So I learned that when I did that research. I was just assuming that obviously this will not be unique, but I was so happy that this book is going to be unique. So I said, this is unique, it is viable, this, that. Then somebody, one publisher said, they are very strong contenders for being a web series. So I would love this to be converted into, it is begging to be converted. There is no similar story or web series or film shows comparison in comparative to this. So this could make a unique thing. So that was a very huge learning experience. For Off the Pages, because Off the Pages is something that I wrote, I think, 20 plus years ago. I mean, the first few pages I wrote some 20 odd years ago. The rest of it I wrote in about 50% I wrote in about 2010-11, and the rest I wrote in 2018. So this was written in large gaps. With very large gaps, and I couldn't wait any longer. I got it published again on Amazon because I had a very good experience. I didn't know that Amazon does not do paperback publishing in India, and my main audience is going to be India. So I was flummoxed right at the end, because there is no mention of that anywhere as you go through the self-publication process on Amazon, and you come to the end, and then you realize that in India it will only be an ebook, and rest of the world there will be paperback. So there are paperback copies available. I'll show you. So this is the Off the Pages cover outside of India.
Wow.
Okay. So this design I did, the entire layout and everything I did. My son did the actual soft copy representation on iPad. That's how the cover
brilliant.
came. This is how the cover looks like in the international editions. But in India, I was very unhappy because I did not have a paperback copy in India, and most of my readers would be in India. So I got talking to this publisher called Bigfoot, and they agreed to publish this in the traditional method in India. So that's how this one came out.
Yes.
So the content
I have
is
a
the
copy
same.
of this in my bookshelf right in front of me.
I'm so happy to know. So this one came out in India, and the ebook internationally is again with this cover. But if you were to buy the paperback copy outside of India, you would get the other one, the older one, the blue one that I showed.
Yes.
So I had experience initially with the self-publication route, and then when it went to the traditional route, then I got through that. So when I got my first contract, that was for the Station Master. I remember I couldn't sleep because it was like a childhood dream that had come true. And I was charged and energized, and I didn't know what to do. And I would see my
Hmm.
name in print, and not
Hmm.
self-printed. Somebody else would
Hmm.
print it
Print. Yeah.
and they would be selling, and I
Ah.
was overjoyed. Then I'll
Hmm.
tell you, ultimately, when the Bengali edition came up, this one.
Hmm. Hmm.
This is the Bengali edition, which is published by Ananda Publishers.
Hmm.
They are the biggest Bengali publishers probably in the world. No other book
Hmm.
publisher publishes the larger volumes of Bengali books. And when
Hmm.
they did this, when they said that they would want to translate, I mean, I didn't have to approach them. They came to me and did that.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was blown away. So
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
can't tell you when I got there. I went to Calcutta and I met with the MD of Ananda Publishers, and across the table I signed that contract, and I came back
Hmm.
clutching the papers in my hand. I tell you, I mean, my wife and I, we were in Calcutta. We had gone there for this purpose.
Hmm.
We went out and had a dinner and all that. We celebrated
Wow.
in that manner. I mean,
Ah.
I was overjoyed. When that's an
Hmm. Hmm.
out of
Hmm.
the world feeling.
Very-
For instance, I'll,
Right.
I'll share
Very,
another
very
little bit for
well.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's
Yes.
another small incident that it's still in the works, but the story that I wrote for Life in Lockdown, that
Hmm.
got
Hmm.
picked up by an international publisher, actually, that story. And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
got a contract with them saying that they will publish it in their book as and when. They're collecting worldwide such stories. My
Hmm.
story would also figure in that collection.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I got a contract for that. So these are like, these are like gems for me, and I treasure
Hmm.
them more
Hmm.
than the
Hmm.
monetary value. It is just the fact
Well.
that my work is being recognized.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's an amazing feeling. As a writer, you will
Yes.
understand that. It
Yes.
is an
Yes.
amazing feeling.
Thanks for sharing those wonderful
Sure.
stories. So, as the viewers they are listening, I can say Indranil Mukherjee sir's USP is being unique with his stories, and if you be unique, you will get noticed. And now we have come to
Thank you.
the end of this session. We have crossed the 1 hour mark, and it's time for me to wrap up. And
Sure.
I'm so glad that today I could host Indranil Mukherjee sir, learn something from his life, learn his experiences on editing, publishing, his take on the characters, how he came out with ideas. I'm sure the viewers have had the takeaways and they will surely implement in their write-ups as well. Thank you so much, sir, for coming over and making this session so memorable. Looking forward to more of your works and do
You
come
bet.
forward for more interviews. Thank you so much for joining
Absolutely.
us. Yeah,
Thank you, Devi, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you, to have this platform to talk about, hear my own voice,
yeah,
but I enjoy it every time. Thank you very much for
yes.
the opportunities, and
Thank you.
great for I'm very thankful for everyone that has joined in, and I hope they had a good time.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you,
Take care.
Devi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.